I know I shouldn't be shocked by the level of police violence in the United States, but it's really hard not to be when you're from this country that really doesn't have militarized looking police. I mean, we have police violence in Australia, but it's a different species of violence in the United States, this militarized, where the cops look like they're in Iraq and they almost behave like they're in Iraq, terrorizing the population of Iraq. Like today, I saw a video of, I've seen this before, but I didn't hear the words light 'em up. There was a bunch of, I'm not sure if they were police or National Guard running down the road of one particular suburb. There was like dozens of them really. And people were doing the curfew in that street, and somebody was out on their patio taking video footage of them running down the street, and they turned around and faced towards them as they were saying, "Get inside," yelling, "Get inside," and pointed their weapon at them. It was some sort of I don't know if it was a paintball, I don't know what it was, some sort of a projectile. It wasn't live ammunition, but they started firing at them. And before they fired at them, one of the cops said, "Light 'em up." That's the sort of thing. I don't know if they use that term in general in the police force in the United States, but that's definitely something that they use in the military. That I've heard them say. I've heard them use that term in the military when they're about to bomb a city, or when they're about to, fire from an AC-130 or a helicopter, some people on the ground in Iraq and Afghanistan. They'll sort of say, "Light 'em up." So that's very disturbing to hear that sort of talk. These were like young people. I think could have even been young, sort of, when I say young, they might have been teenagers and possibly a parent. And one of them got, sort of shot in the leg, and even though it's not, I don't think it was a rubber bullet, but it really hurt. And it's also, this is intended to terrorize the public. It's intended to terrorize and subdue and make sure that people do not question authority for fear that they may end up with a serious injury or possibly even be killed. I mean, look at, was it in Kentucky? That man, they shot at some protesters. This black guy was in this protesting thing. He owned some kind of a bar and grill place where he used to serve cops for free, police for free. And he was killed by, I'm not sure what they were firing, whether it was a rubber bullet, I'm not sure, but he was killed by the police. I think they were firing into a crowd. And then he ended up laying, I'm not sure how this worked out, but he ended up laying in the street in Louisville, Kentucky for 12 hours. If you saw it going on in another country, you would go, well, that's outrageous and unacceptable, and then some US citizens would be saying, or rather the establishment would be saying, we need to invade that country and bring democracy and freedom. And that's about the size of it, really. It's like it's appalling what people are witnessing. And yet, because it's a Western country, you get like our Sky News here, which is, I think it's a Murdoch-owned news corporation. They're really, really totally on board with what Trump's doing and sort of making out. They're repeating all the talking points that Trump is making. That's one of our main, sort of news services here, the Murdoch Press. They own 75% or more of the news here. So that's the sort of thing you're going to get, establishment, national talking points, national security state talking points from the Murdoch Press. And I saw a funny article by The Chaser, which is sort of like an Australian send-up sort of satire comedy group, who put out this article saying Iraq wants to invade the US and restore democracy and freedom, or something to that effect, And I just thought that was really funny, because That's exactly right. It's like, it's okay when we do it. I don't know if you've ever seen that meme online. Fascism, it's okay when we do it. This is straight up neo-fascism we're witnessing. Straight up. And if you just have a look at there was some journalist who was laying on the ground, and he kept on saying to them, I'm press, and it didn't matter to them because they're actually literally attacking journalists. If they find out people are journalists, they attack them. And he was just laying there on the ground, and they just casually sprayed him in the face with pepper spray. Just like that. Absolutely no reason to do so, but they did it anyway. It's just sadistic stuff. I mean, the hate, the contempt for the public. The joke that the police were ever there to serve and protect. What a joke that is. Their reason for their creation, it was to protect the oligarchy, and it's very, very, very obvious now that it's always been like that. And it's always been the case with the militias turned into the KKK, who turned into the police. That's the story behind the police in a nutshell. And it's very obvious that they're there to brutalize black people and people of color. That's what the militias used to do, was put down uprising slaves. And they still see them as property and slaves. Obviously, the police still have that DNA running through them. They still see the black people and immigrants and all of that. Anyone that they consider other is somebody to brutalize and to kill. This is neo-fascism on display right now. We don't have to wait for Trump to get in at the end of the year, if he does get in, because he's really bungled this coronavirus pandemic, really leaving people in the lurch and all of that. It's possible he may even lose, but I don't think he will. If they had a decent candidate opposing him, he might lose, but it's a terrible, terrible situation anyway. But we don't have to wait for Trump to get in to witness neo-fascism. It's happening right now. And the sort of things, him sort of doing this call in the military and then we'll end it. That's, calling in the military on your own population. It's just, I don't know, it's frightening. It's really frightening to watch. I don't know, every time I think that I couldn't get more sort of shocked or afraid for American citizens, US citizens, it just sort of manages to bring it up again. I just don't know how this is going to end. I really don't know how this is going to end. It will either, something really good will come out of all of this, which is possible, but I think there's going to be a lot of suffering in between. The empire is at a dangerous stage now where it's flailing and falling. It's losing grip on its outposts overseas, all these the 1,000 military bases and all of that. This is how the Roman Empire ended up falling, because it overstretched, it couldn't maintain its control, and it outsourced, I think, also to different military figures, and it just all fell apart. That's one of the reasons. Also, it became really debauched. There's bread and circuses and everything else. So we're really at where probably the Roman Empire was just before the end of it. That's where the US is, and it's getting very dangerous indeed. And they're just doing everything, grasping on, clinging on to power. But the world is waking up to what a shit show the US is. They're waking up, and, as that saying goes, you can't fool everybody all of the time. And that's where it is now. Particularly with how many citizen journalists there are now. Everything is being documented, despite their efforts to stop it from being documented. It's being documented, right? And so a lot of it is out there in front of us. To some degree, the state is making it an equal playing field. Not really, in that black people are much more likely to die from coronavirus, COVID-19. They're much more sort of under the foot than the white people. But when white people are told, no, you can't do this, or you have to do that, you have to wear a mask, you have to stay indoors at a curfew, and yada yada, all those different rules, and this sort of proud to be ignorant kind of, I'm just going to do what I want to do sort of thing that you hear a lot on TV when US citizens that don't want to do this, and I want my freedom and I'm not going to do this, when they are also affected by laws that that are imposed, or worse, on black people and people of color. That's unacceptable, and that's something that people are waking up to. White middle class people are waking up to this reality that the state thinks you disposable, and if people are looting, it's because they're desperate for food, or because everything is falling apart. Society is breaking down, which is something that's been on the cards for a long time, but now it's on display. And America is like the quote-unquote canary in the coal mine for the rest of us, because more and more governments are right-wing, or at best the opposing party is in the middle, which is nowhere. And more and more people are going to realize that all of us are disposable, not just black and brown people, people of color, Muslims, etc., all the people that have been stomped on by the state and oppressed and enslaved and all of that. Now white people are starting to wake up and smell the roses, so to speak. And this is something that won't stop in America. The US is just an example of what will happen in disaster capitalism, and in the further lurching to the right that a lot of governments are doing. This is where a non-violent grassroots movement is essential, because you can't vote this kind of thing out. Like I've said before, that quote, the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. You cannot reform from within this broken system, and so the only way is to address it through non-violent grassroots movements. And that's why people need to organize, and they need to strike and bring down. This capitalist system could not survive without consumers. That's the bottom line. You don't consume, they don't thrive. And look what the COVID-19 has taught people, that a lot of businesses, and sadly a lot of small businesses, but a lot of businesses have collapsed under this, the lack of consumption and the lack of people being outside. Look what George W. Bush said after 9/11, go out shopping. That was his answer to that crisis. Go out shopping. That's all that matters to that system, to the establishment, is people consuming, being dumb consumers, accepting whatever they give them, the crumbs that are falling from the table. That's all that we're supposed to accept what little they give us and shut the hell up. So since we must realize at this point that we're disposable and irrelevant, and becoming more irrelevant every day, then just sitting back and thinking you can vote your way out of it every 4 years, when the electoral system is so corrupt in the United States, so corrupt and fraudulent, it needs to have international oversight. That's how bad it is. When you know that that's how it is, and how difficult it is for third parties to get on ballot tickets, etc., then something else has to be done. Of course, you can support Movement for a People's Party and the Party for Socialism and Liberation, those kind of things. That's a great idea. But we're also going to have to, there's going to have to be things done, strikes and all sorts of things to bring down disaster capitalism. And anybody who's going, oh, they shouldn't be looting, they shouldn't be doing this, you have no idea what's going on. No idea. And you're probably white. So it's anybody who doesn't understand why people are looting, also anybody who doesn't realize that agents provocateurs from probably all kinds of places, it could be from anywhere, could be from the FBI, could be the police themselves, which it's been discovered. There's been numerous police involved in destroying property of their own as well as destroying property of businesses. So if people are going to say, oh, it's all these protesters destroying things, that's not true. Anyway, hope you're well, and I'm having good thoughts for US citizens. And I saw that Abby Martin has had a baby. I didn't know she was pregnant. I think most people knew she was pregnant, but she's just had a baby, and she said how strange it is to have a child in the middle of a pandemic and the sort of things that are going on now. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Anyway, so thanks for watching. My name's Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Vigo. Till next time. Bye for now.